Once upon a time, the synthesizer stood in his keep, a maker of order in a world that felt increasingly strange. He moved with purpose, transforming simple garden gifts into a grand design, a cookbook, a system, a shield against the chaos of his own inner kingdom. This act of creation was a comfort, a small anchor in a rising tide of unease. He knew the truth of his craft. One learns not by charting the entire ocean, but by setting sail, taking notes on the wind, and correcting the course, millimeter by millimeter. But the tide within him continued to rise. A great need, not for food or for comfort, but for escape, began to pull at him. He felt as though he had awakened in a land that was no longer his, a place built by past actions that no longer fit the man he was becoming. To answer this call, he crossed the threshold of his own routine. He took to his metal steed not for a destination, but for the journey itself, a deliberate interruption of the patterns that held him captive. He drove through lands that were not his own, a small act of defiance against the stillness. On this road he searched for solace, but found a terrible clarity instead. He saw with stark vision the truth of his isolation. He was a man with a different map, eating different foods, thinking different thoughts, belonging to no tribe he could name. The loneliness was a vast ocean, and he a single soul on a tiny raft. The journey's trials were not monsters or mountains, but the whispers of easy comfort, the siren call of sweets that promised a moment's pleasure at the cost of his strength. He resisted, holding on to the image of his young prince, a reason to stay the course. He found not an island of peace, but the heart of the storm itself. The anxiety that had been a simple fog was revealed to be a biological tempest, a fire in his very nerves that made connection impossible. Every conversation with his queen, every attempt to chart a new course together, was dashed against the rocks of this invisible illness. The price of this knowledge was immense. He felt tortured, powerless, and utterly alone, the day a wreck upon the shore. But what he took from that wreckage was a new and powerful name for his suffering, a phase transition. He returned to his keep, not defeated, but changed. The man who had set out seeking simple relief now understood the nature of the storm. The fear was not a sign of weakness, but a signal flare from his own soul, announcing that a great shift was not just possible, but necessary. He saw that the terrifying waves of anxiety were not the enemy, but very force that would carry his raft away from the land that no longer fit, toward a new shore he could not yet see. The change would be scary, but it would be good. He was alone on the raft, yes, but for the first time he understood the currents.